He's
is
here.
here.
Great, thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 4, minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes from December 15th.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we will move on to number 5, public hearings. A, public hearing number 1. Topic, to amend map 7-4, City of Delafield 2030 Master Land Use Plan, map of the 2030 Comprehensive Plan from the agricultural to low-density residential category property described below. Is there anyone here to speak to public hearing number 1? Sir, come on up.
My name is Chuck Gallagher.
Yep.
Oh.
Name and address, please, and then we need you to sit down and speak into the mic, please.
I'll lower this so you can hear me. My name is Chuck Gallagher, and my address is 1343 Perry Lane, Heartland. And I am in one of the properties that will abut the property that is proposed to be rezoned. And I'd like to start out by saying that the focus group that made the recommendations to rezone the property wasn't really a focus group. There's lots of literature out there on what a focus group really does and what they are. It was a committee. It was a hand-picked committee. And on that committee was an alderperson, a plan commission member, and 3 individuals who were developers. So the committee was very heavily weighted to the development side. 2 of those developers weren't even City of Delafield residents. So we have a committee that now is making recommendations that they could benefit from. There was one individual on the committee who represented the rural estate 2 and 3 zoning. That was Jerry Holton, and he was the only one who voted against rezoning the property from ag to RE1. Now, if we look back at the land in question, it's surrounded on 3 sides by 2-acre rural estate. The 4th side will remain agricultural from now, from what I understand. Back in 2008, the city did a survey in preparation for a comprehensive master plan. It surveyed the residents, and I'd like to talk a little bit about a couple of things that are in that plan. Page 203 of that plan. The top 3 items in defining neighborhood character in Delafield are preservation of woodlands, wetlands at 68%, open space at 63%, and distance between neighbors as 60%. And then another one, in traditional neighborhood design with larger lot sizes, 67% felt individual lot owners are responsible for conservation of open space and natural features as well. 56% felt individual lots should have easements to preserve open space and natural features. Then on page 197 of the comprehensive plan, it states, existing developed subdivisions with lots over 2 acres in size are classified as rural estate. Adjacent parcels and infill parcels are expected to be developed at comparable densities. It is the intent of the land use plan to protect existing developed rural estate areas so new development does not change the character or qualities of these neighborhoods. And the applicable zoning districts were RE2 and RE3. Instead of following this land use plan, which was adopted by the city of Delafield, this proposed development attempts to reduce the zoning to RE1. If that's not bad enough, it's going to use a PUD that will further reduce the lot sizes to ½ acre. In order to make this work, they have to further reduce the setbacks so the houses can go very close to the lot lines. And this is a 75% reduction in the size of the lot compared to all of the surrounding developed properties, which are RE2. Clearly, this is in direct conflict with the land use plan for the city of Delafield and the surrounding properties. In the 90s, the Geesons were faced with an attempt by the city to rezone their ag land to RE2 because the city determined that that was the best use of the property at the time. Myself and other neighbors protested because it was not fair to force a farm out of existence because the city wanted to collect more taxes. The point is, the city knew at that time RE2 was the best use of the property. Now, Maryland has every right to develop the land, and I'm not faulting her for exercising that right. I support rezoning of the land from agriculture to RE2, as clearly stated in the land use plan of the city of Delafield. With roughly 6 acres set aside for the isolated natural resources area, that'll leave about 29 1/3 acres, which means you could get 14 lots at 2 acres each. That's a far cry from the 29 lots now being proposed. I'm asking the commission to stick to the 2030 comprehensive plan, do the right thing, and rezone this as RE2. The RE1 zoning in this development should be rejected. Thank you.
Great, we appreciate your comments. I forgot to mention, please, folks, we can't have clapping and things like that, whether you're for it or against it. We just want to be respectful to everybody that's here, regardless of what side of a topic they might be on, so I'd appreciate that cooperation. I did forget to remind everyone, we do have a pretty full house tonight. When it's full like this, I really ask that you try to keep your comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. If somebody has mentioned something that you agree with from before, please just say that, rather than going through the same information over again. So appreciate your cooperation on that. I'll give you a heads up if you're getting close to that 2 minutes, and I'll give you a warning when you exceed it and ask you to wrap it up. So who'd like to be next? Come on up.
Hi there, my name is Jason Harned. I live at 1423 Perry Lane, and just like Chuck, I'll be backed up to the proposed subdivision.
Sir, can you spell your last name, please?
Harned.
Thank you.
No problem. I won't, as you said, for time restraints, I won't go through everything that I agreed with Chuck with that. I would say that, for the record, I would like to start personally that I'm not against development. When I purchased this property in 2013, I did expect that one day it would be developed. But I also did expect it to be developed in all the properties that surround this entire proposal is all RE2. So by taking the north side and the south side and making those R1, as Chuck said, you're putting 4 houses per acre that are going to be backed up to all the existing property owners. The shared green space, which allow them to get to the 1 acre, that is going to be further away from our properties. So basically now, as I look at sunsets in the field, which I understood this could be developed, now I'm going to see 3 homes in my backyard. So I'm going to be staring at 3 homes because, as Chuck said, the setbacks are much different now. These fields do serve as traffic areas for deer and wildlife. Now, my only question is, has there been any studies done to the additional possible crashes and the effect that is going to happen on 83? Traffic studies, there's been many, the intersection of Nagawicca Road East and 83 is extremely busy, and it's extremely hard to navigate that intersection. With adding this many new homes to it, I would like to know if there was any traffic studies done to this, because as of right now, with no additional homes, it's extremely hard to get onto 83, but it's extremely hard to cross it at various times of the day. As Chuck said, I'm not going to get into about the focus group, but in my opinion, I think it would have been important and beneficial to actually speak to the property owners that will be most affected by this change. I moved here 9 years ago, as I stated, with the hopes of some privacy and quiet in an established neighborhood. Right now, my nearest neighbor is roughly 80 yards from my home, with natural barriers such as trees and bushes. Now with this proposal, I'll be staring at the back of 3 homes just 20 to 40 feet beyond my backyard. I personally see this proposal as a typical new subdivision you would find in Menominee Falls, Sussex, or even parts of Oconomowoc. I did not believe this proposal takes into account the history of Delafield and does not take into account the area or existing homes that completely surround this proposal. All these existing homes have 2 acres with 1 dwelling without shared plots of land to satisfy the zoning. And once again, I disagree with having R1 but shared plots of land, so really all these homes are going to be on half-acre lots. That really takes away and segregates the existing neighborhoods and makes this a completely different subdivision with no unity whatsoever.
All right, need you to please wrap it up.
Okay. Let me just try to get to... I would propose a delay in the vote to rezone this agricultural land to R1 to give the community additional time for research, additional studies to be done for the impact of wildlife, additional studies of traffic and safety concerns, potential loss of value to existing homes, and the opportunity to put together and obtain more community input on this matter. I'll just take one more brief second. I thank you for the opportunity to let us speak today. I hope you'll take this into consideration before allowing this major change to the surrounding area that will greatly impact the existing homeowners, the history of the city of Delafield. I ask that the city of Delafield ask the DNR and the DNR to do studies and traffic studies to be done of the potential damaging effects this could have to the existing area and wildlife before a change in zoning is voted on. And I would also like to make a note that I oppose this development as presented. And I would like to make note that many of the neighbors received very short notice on this, and many that I spoke to directly would like an opportunity to attend a meeting on this and time to do additional research and studies so that they can have their voices heard.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. All right, who would like to be next? Ma'am, you were next.
My name is Diane Diamore at 2804 Horseshoe Bend in Delafield.
Can you please spell your last name?
D apostrophe capital A-M-O-R-E.
And repeat your address?
2804 Horseshoe Bend.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, committee, for the opportunity to speak. I have this down to 2.5 minutes for you.
Okay.
My intentions here are to express my objections to the proposed rezoning of Highway 83 and Nagawicca Road. For 27 years, I have, with my extended family, owned 3 homes on 12 acres, 2 of which we built. Our properties are adjacent to the land that is up for rezoning. With the existing code, we are restricted to build on no less than a 3-acre minimum. We experienced firsthand the importance of Delafield's specific codes and regulations that are held to this day. The high standards of preservation of land, home, continuity, beauty, along with the value of our natural lands, lakes, and wildlife directly affect the outstanding quality of life chosen by the people who agree and value the current A1 holding code. The proposed RE1 half-acre rezoning does not follow that suit. Historically, Delafield's codes have been in the keeping of the wants of the majority, not solely those whose community goals are motivated by finances and economics. For each of the 29 or 30 low-density residential homes plotted in the proposed Spheres development, you will find an equal amount of Delafield, if not more, homeowners who reject the change from A1 holding to RE1. It cannot go without saying that there are benefits in new development and construction. However, the bigger reality begs the question, at what cost, to how many, and to what degree? In changing the current zoning to low-density half-acre diminishes the beauty of the landscape and eliminates the base reason we chose to live in this specific area of Delafield. The proposed 2930 multi-story homes accompanied by over 3,000 feet of roadway not only kills off areas of natural land and wildlife, but terminates the cherished peace and privacy and the long well-known aesthetics of our neighbors, our homeowners that are there now. The increased volume of people coming and going, the increased vehicle traffic, noise, light pollution, crime, everything that comes with this shift in regulation primarily serves economic goals. This area proposed for zoning is not like other areas being considered for development in Delafield. It's unique and historic with this equestrian trail known as the Bridle Path. The trail brings a tranquil quality to the area that would be directly and negatively impacted by the rezoning. Please take into account the uniqueness of this area, chosen by a large number of citizens who are opposing the rezoning. The proposed rezoning amendment ultimately destroys one of a kind aesthetics, the tranquility and continuity of a distinctive and wonderful area of Delafield. Thank you for hearing me.
Yes, thank you for your comments. And I'm sorry, I think I misspoke before. I said 2 minutes. I meant to say 3. If I said 2, that was a mistake. So who'd like to be next, sir? You were the quickest.
Good evening. I'm Dan Diamore. That's my sister that just spoke. I'm at 2755 Horseshoe Bend, and I oppose it. I'm in a very unique situation where 2 sections of my property are along the bridle path, and I've spent a significant amount of money to keep my property to take advantage of the bridle path. We love the horses going by, and on the 21st of January, I received a note from Spears Land Development, which is really great. I love the detail. But as I read this, again, haven't had much time, the lot number 1 is going to be 20 feet from the bridle path, which is going to be then 40 feet from my property. And so I also agree development's great, but I would certainly like more time that if this type of thing is going to go through, I can make plans to change my property to take advantage of the bridle path and, quite frankly, block some of the big homes that are literally going to be 20 feet from my property. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Who would like to be next, sir?
I'm Michael Diamore. That's my brother and my sister. I'm at 2812 Horseshoe Bend. I'm going to try to keep this under 3 minutes.
Is that mic on? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, very
All
good.
right. I'm going to try to keep this under 3 minutes. I grew up in Brookfield, a town that was at one point very nice. Today, Brookfield is nothing more than a singular, sprawling, nondescript subdivision. It's overcrowded, traffic is horrible, and crime has become a genuine problem. It's because of this that we moved to Delafield some 20 years ago, which was a very special place. However, today it is sadly and very quickly going the route of Brookfield. Today we're here because of a developer who is part of this problem. He's packaging his proposal in a flowery scenario saying that he has only the best of intention for the city. The truth is, his goal is to squeeze in as many homes as he can onto whatever land he has available. And in classic negotiating tactics, he's lowballing the city with an entry offer of half-acre lots. And if he doesn't get that, then whatever conciliatory compromise he makes, then it's still better than the 3-acre lots that we're currently zoned for. May I remind you of how much he cares for our city when in 2002 he didn't get his way and immediately sued the city for $5 million, stating his proposal met all the city's zoning laws. But today he's saying, hey, change your zoning laws and meet my proposal. There's serious problems with this proposal. Obviously, there's untenable traffic on Highway 83, which includes a multitude of accidents. One involved a man who found his way onto our property while running away from the police. Spheris wants to add to this the equivalent of hundreds of cars every single day, and likely another traffic light. Another very grave concern is that of precedence. Granting a proposal like this opens the door for future developers to cite this approval and plow under every other lot at will. Time precludes me from going into detail, but this growth will create a multitude of further problems such as ecological destruction, additional stress on already stressed wildlife, the obvious pollution, the financial drain created by necessary added service, and of course the very expensive and inevitable widening of Highway 83 and other thoroughfares. It's been said that residential development is advantageous to the Delafield tax base, but this is not sustainable. Exponential growth will create an inevitable need for services that will far outweigh the incoming taxes. Zoning is discretionary. but must comply to our master plan. Today, Spheris is asking to put in 29 homes on tiny plots in an area of approximately 35 acres. The surrounding area, however, is absolutely nothing like this. In fact, to find 29 existing homes, you must go all the way down both Nagawicka and Perry Lanes. I don't believe this rezoning request is even remotely in accordance with the master plan. In fact, it's proposals like this that are chipping away at that plan, and once it's gone, we can never get it back. Please deny this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, who'd like to be next? Come on up.
Hi, Mark Schaefer, 2106 Evergreen Lane. My wife and I have been here about 5 years. We've owned a variety of houses in several municipalities over the years, and I love things to go unchanged as much as the next guy. But that's not realistic. Looking at the proposal, high-end single-family homes seem like a good fit for the area. I don't have 2 acres. Most of my neighbors don't have 2 acres. I'm in the development directly to the west. There's a lot of 1 acre and even less properties in that area. The architectural guidelines that they're proposing are really, I think, more restrictive and more respectful of the neighbors than the guidelines in my own neighborhood. It seems like this is in the direction proposed by the economic development study. This isn't going to remain farmland forever. It'd be unrealistic to think so. And I think this proposal, single-family homes, is certainly preferable to any other development I could think of for that location. Certainly better than, as somebody who lives there, better than commercial or industrial or high-density apartments or other things that could go there. Certainly the proximity to the state highway could make it attractive for all sorts of other higher density developments. So I would support this. It's probably the best alternative for the future. The one concern I would have would be perhaps at the appropriate time could we review the traffic control needs at Nagawicka and 83. But that's just a detail in what otherwise seems like the best proposal we could hope for. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Who'd like to be next? Sure, come on up.
Thank you for allowing us the 2 or 3 minutes, whatever it is, but mine will be much shorter than that. Chuck Moranchek, Moranchek, 2609 Horseshoe Bend. And like so many who have spoken tonight, my wife and I are vehemently opposed to this. We've lived in our house since '94. We've lived in Delafield since 1980. So we're longtime residents here. We have a 6-acre lot. We love our property. Our property abuts the Geeson farm up past. It's just south of us. But we love the nature. We love watching the turkeys flying in and out of the trees every morning, every evening. The deer that run through the yard don't like it when they eat our hostas, but we do enjoy the wildlife that we have in our yard. And yeah, I agree that this is going to impact that, but I totally agree and really echo and champion the fact that this is not the right place for this kind of zoning. I'm a true believer in the Constitution. I'm a true believer in property rights, and the Geesons have every right to develop that property. When they retired from
Can you
farming,
near your mouth to the mic?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. I forgot.
That's all right.
So when they retired from farming, we knew it was just a matter of time before the property was developed, and we have no issue with that. But 1-acre lots is way too small for that particular area. And I'll close with a comment that I know from the city's perspective, the extra tax revenue that would be coming in is really intriguing, but I don't think that this is the way to solve the burden on the city, the costs. I think the city, if there's not enough income, it's not an income problem, it's a spending problem. Maybe the city should stop spending at the rate that they're spending, and then we wouldn't have an income problem. So anyway, we are opposed to this development. I would ask, like others have, that you just slow down, let people absorb this, let them research this, and take it to heart what people have been saying. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your comments, truly do. All right, who would like to be next? Anyone else? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Laura Moranchek, and I live at 2609 Horseshoe Bend. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting us speak and giving our opinions. It was very late in the day that we were notified about this. On, I believe it was the 19th of January. We had to have written comments put in by noon on the 20th. And I thought, that doesn't give us 24 hours to even put comments down. So at the get-go, we're like, we're behind in this and researching it. I agree with my husband that, yes, we love the nature. I don't know if there was a nature study done. I don't know if the DNR was contacted. I don't know if there was a traffic study done. And then I don't know if there was a discussion about what impact is it going to have on the city's resources, the DPW, the water, the sewer. I mean, what impact is that going to have long-term for the city of Delafield? I also agree with Chuck Gallagher. A lot of the things that he stated that are in the long-term plan, those are there for a reason. And I am not opposed to development. Yes, I agree with the gentleman that says these beautiful homes are going to add beauty to our neighborhoods and to Delafield, but not on a half acre, not on an acre. It is zoned 3 acres now. And I would agree that we could go to 2 acres, but not to what the proposal is right now. I think that that is not fair.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming tonight.
So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yep. Just a reminder, folks, this is the first preliminary presentation for this applicant. They'll be back potentially 2 or 3 more times over a 2, maybe 3-month period. So just keep that in mind. Anyone else, sir? We can't really do that, but if I'll accommodate you as best I can. Is it quick?
I just wanted to ask if there would be a vote on changing the zoning today.
No.
There's an action to make recommendation to council.
There would be a vote to change the zoning, so I misspoke, to change the zoning and recommend to council. If the planning commission so chose. They're not required to make a decision tonight. Okay? Anyone else on this topic? Anyone else? Seeing none. Oh,
I just want clarification. So, again, Laura Moranchek, 2609 Horseshoe Bend. So you're actually saying that you're going to vote to change the zoning tonight?
Do you want me to just, I'll really briefly describe the process if you don't mind. So there's 3 actions that could potentially occur tonight. One is to make a recommendation to adopt a resolution to recommend that the council amend the land use plan, which is the long-range vision for densities for the property.
Right.
Then the second action would be that the Plan Commission might recommend that the Common Council approve the rezoning, which would go to council as well. Then the third action is the actual review of the development specifically. So the first 2 items aren't specific to necessarily to the development. It's changing the density and lot size provisions. And then the conditional use, which is the development, which the mayor had suggested, it may take 2 or 3 months, probably even longer to go through all of the steps, is they may schedule a public hearing for that conditional use, which would occur next month. So with the first one, the land use plan, there will be another public hearing on the land use plan in front of the council in February.
But once the 1 acre lots have been approved, it's done. So tonight, you could
Not the
approve-
subdivision,
Okay.
not the subdivision, but the density and lots of the zoning and density the recommendation would go to council. It's not done, it's a recommendation to council.
Well, I would recommend that you postpone that vote, because we have not had time to research this, like I said.
Wait
Sounds
till it
good.
comes up. Wait.
Go ahead. Yeah, the council actually votes on
Yeah, the
this.
council would have to vote
Right,
too.
Right, but you're the recommendation party.
Correct.
You're the one that's going to say, we want this.
Yep.
Yeah.
What this group would recommend,
Right.
whatever
And
it is.
I think I agree with the majority of them that spoke against
Okay.
the rezoning from 3 to 1.
Okay,
So,
great.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you
I just
again.
wanted some clarification. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to 5B, public hearing number 2.
You got one more person back there.
Oh, did I miss? Oh, behind the pole, I'm sorry, come on up.
Are they both working?
Yes.
Okay. Can I take it out?
Sure.
Hi, I'm
But I
Marilyn.
need you to sit down and
I
face,
have to sit
this is who you're talking to right
Okay.
here.
I'm Marilyn Geeson. I am the widow of Joseph Geeson. Joseph passed.
Can I please get your address?
1424 Woodside Street is where my husband and I lived for 55 years. I recently have relocated. When a husband dies, he was the main part of your life. You raised 3 children with him, and when you married him, he was a farmer, and I was a farmer from the town of Waukesha, farm girl. And we raised cattle on this property. We pastured the cattle. When a cow threw her uterus, we were there to take care of her and save her life. Because when you're a farmer, you work 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. The first 28 years of our marriage, we spent 3 nights off of our property, off of our precious farm, to spend 3 nights with our children in a cottage up north. 3 nights in 28 years. The Geeson family farm was in 2015, 2 weeks after my husband passed, was honored by the state of Wisconsin at the Wisconsin State Fair for being a centennial farm. So how many of you have lived in this community for 107 years?
Yep.
How many? How many of you have lived here 55 years or more?
Yep.
One person. Okay, just interesting facts. My husband's family was here 107 years. They bought that first parcel of property, which is the northern side of Negawicka Road. Later on, the Geesons bought next to where Perry Lane is. That used to be a turkey farm. The Perry family, P-A-R-R-Y family. Jim Perry still lives there, and his sister, of course, their grandfather and father have passed. When you become a part of a community, you work there, you live there. My son was almost killed on Highway 83, as were all of my 3 nephews who lived across the street, John Geeson's children. What I'm saying, folks, is life changes. I can no longer maintain this property as a farm. My life has changed. I will be doing a ministry now. I serve God. And I have to change. And the whole world is changing. But this property is precious. That's why I slowly waited 6.5 years after my husband passed, at which time I made the decision upon much prayer that it was time for me to move on. So I sought a developer who had a reputation of being morally, physically, mentally correct, with dignity and perfection, and who did an excellent job at what he does. That's why Mr. Spiris has a contract to buy this land for me. Every single thing that my husband and I knew would happen someday, upon consultation with John, he is doing to this property, including the 2 beautiful ponds which will have aeration. The walking paths. Of course, many years ago, my husband and I made the decision, and with the city of Delafield, in order to do the land split for my home, which was our homestead on the end of the cul-de-sac there, we agreed with the city of Delafield we would put in that 10-foot walking path so everyone could walk from Nagawicka Road down to the cul-de-sac and right to the park. Mr. Spears is going to add additional trails. He is maintaining the orchard that my husband and I planted 4 years before his death. And he is going to honor that orchard and take care of it. Where the roads are is actually the path where my husband would run home from the farm to get his extra exercise after working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week.
If you could please try to
The
wrap-
only thing he
please
did
try to
for
wrap
sure was to go to church. So life changes. Someday everything will be filled up from Milwaukee to Madison. There are people who need a nice place to live. This is a beautiful spot. And I can tell you that 18 years ago, we were offered $1 million a loan for just overlooking that lake where one of these homes, where these two homes will be. So things have changed. We didn't sell it to him. By the way, we had an opportunity to sell it to the Indian tribe. They would have bought the entire farm. We chose not to do that because it would not benefit the people of Delafield. That would bring crime to the neighborhood. Beautiful homes put together by quality builders with a good developer will be a benefit to this community. Tax money for additional help with schools, streets, and whatever. This has all been thought through many, many years ago, and I could speak for 2 hours, but I appreciate the fact you gave me this time over the 3 minutes. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody else for this topic? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to 5B, public hearing number 2. Topic, amend zoning district of the official zoning map from A1 agricultural and residential holding districts to RE1 on 1 acre rural estate districts on property described below. Nagawicka Road East, tax key as listed. Is there anybody that would like to speak to public hearing number 2? Anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 2? Seeing none, public hearing number 2 is now closed. Okay, then we'll move on to citizens' comments with regard to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that has citizens' comments specifically for the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, citizens' comments for the consent agenda are now closed. Okay, we'll go on to this consent agenda, number 7.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, now we have citizens' comments on items other than the consent agenda and public hearing. Anybody would like to speak to anything? Oh, consent agenda, folks, if you were just approved, you're welcome to leave or stay if you like. If you're not sure if you're on the consent agenda, I would grab an agenda over there. Any citizens' comments on any other topics on the agenda? Any other citizens' comments for other topics on the agenda? Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. Okay, I'm going to jump out of order real quick here to get somebody out of here. I'm going to jump to 10A. Under new business, DELC 0803988005, 2574 Sun Valley Drive, owner Gary Stortz, applicant Berkshire Hathaway HS Lake Country Realty, represented by Jody Van Zyl Signerama. Applicant is requesting approval of a permanent sign to advance Berkshire Hathaway's HS Lake Country Realty sign. Do we have the applicant here? Come on up. Name and address, and then Amy, if you can give us an overview, please.
Yes, sir. Terry Dietrich, Berkshire Hathaway, 803 North Ponderosa Drive, Dittrich.
Great. Amy's going to give us an overview.
Okay, I think we can make this real quick because the applicant is proposing option 1, which would have been typically on the consent agenda. But this is the property located in the southwest corner of Heritage Drive and Highway 83. If you remember, it's a home service realty business that did recently receive business plan of operation approval. They did need to come back for signage, which they're proposing now. They did get approval for temporary signage, which is on the building, and I believe the permanent signage will mimic that very, very closely. The signage will have white face with black cans, and it will be internally lit. I do believe the rest of the signs out there, the ones on the lower side are red, and then the sign on the second floor has white and red lettering. The overall sign that they are going to go with, I will put a picture up here, will be 30 and a half square feet. They're allowed 50 square feet total for an individual sign. The multi-tenant program signage limits the overall height to 30 inches, and because they have 3 layers of lettering, they were not complying with that originally, and this sign has now been amended to meet that provision. The other option would have required that they come back to amend the multi-tenant program. So that's why I did not have it on the consent agenda, but the applicant has agreed to go with this sign. Just to show you the comparison, this was the original sign where it was 37 inches in height versus the 30 inches allowed.
So you need a motion?
Do.
I'll make a motion to approve based on using sign option.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Welcome to the city of Delafield.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll get back to the regular order here. 9, unfinished business. A, DLC 0781989004 and DLC 0781989005. Unknown address on Nagawicka Road East. Owner, Joe's Legacy Farm LLC. Applicant, John Spears. Applicant is requesting the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending approval of the requested land use amendment from the agricultural category to the low-density residential category. The resolution would also be recommend adoption of an updated land use map for all properties amended through 2021 and the properties described below.
Okay, I'm just going to start with having this map on the screen. The applicant did come in December to provide a conceptual presentation, so you have heard his request in the past. This is located just west of Highway 83 on the north and south sides of Nagawicka Road. The applicant is proposing a total of 29 lots, and yes, he is proposing an amendment from the land use plan from the agricultural district to low-density residential, which requires a minimum of 1 unit per acre. And then the existing zoning is A1 agricultural and residential holding, which requires a minimum of 3-acre lot size or less, or flexibility can be provided with a conditional use, which the applicant is proposing. But he's proposing RE1, 1-acre rural estate, which is a 1-acre minimum lot size with that plan unit development so that the lots would average about a half an acre. They do have to be a minimum of a half an acre per the code. And so the statutes and the city plan do require that the Plan Commission adopt a resolution recommending the plan amendment. And then another public hearing would take place at the council meeting in February for consideration. However, the way the plan is written, the council cannot amend the Plan Commission's recommendation. So it would need to be sent back to you if they didn't agree for reconsideration, just to be clear. So the overall acreage of the 2 parcels equals 35 and a half acres. The property is served by, or will be served by sewer and water. I think one very important thing to note, when the original land use plan was written, it was written with this area not having the sewer and water services. And providing those types of infrastructure and utilities is a very expensive cost to the developer. And so typically municipalities do not have densities as low as what the city has in areas that are served by sewer and water. So during the recent economic development land use focus project, the focus group did recommend that the subject lands be designated in the low density category. and allow for a 1-acre density PUD conservation subdivision. They did like the idea of specifically requiring the conservation type development. The recommendation would provide for additional density in an area that can be served by sewer and water, and it provides a transition from the proposed land use categories to the east. So if you look at the staff report, there are some additional lands to the east right along Highway 83 that the focus group did recommend be put in the medium density residential category, which is actually 4 units per acre. And then the lands east of 83 within this same area are already in the medium density residential category. And again, that higher density being provided along 83 as it is a major highway, and that area is also served by sewer and water. But the area on the west side of 83 has not been amended yet or considered formally by the Plan Commission or Council. Let's see. Also, the area on this map, it's hard to see, but it's the hatched area on the northwest corner. That is actually designated as isolated natural resource area by the city of Delafield. The applicant does intend on preserving that. There's just a little bit that extends onto the lots, but the buildable area of the lot would not extend into that isolated natural area. That is limited to 1 unit per 5-acre density. So it does change the allowable densities on the property. They would be provided the 29 lots that they're proposing if this is amended.
Amy, just to clarify the 1 acre versus half acre. So what you're saying is because of the extra green space or the conservation, the average is 1 acre, but there are some lots that are half acre to make that math work. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, so the RE1 is a 1 acre lot size, but when you do a plan unit development conditional use, you're allowed to have flexibility in the minimum lot size, lot width, setbacks, offsets, and dimensional requirements, but maintaining the same amount of open space that would be required on an individual lot needs to be available on the overall site. So the idea behind PUDs is to actually condense the lots into a smaller area so that you can preserve a larger area in open space, which is theoretically better for the environment and the surrounding lands, and typically provides that greater buffer along the road edge as well.
Which is a similar concept we used with the Seatman development that was recently approved and under construction now.
So, they may only be allowed, if it was 2 acres or 1 acre lot, well, let's say it's 1 acre lots, they could have the 29 lots, but it would be much more broken up within these rectangular pieces, which may or may not have an even greater impact on the surrounding neighbors. Or development right along the development would go right up to the lot lines. So the northern property has a total of 15 residential lots proposed. The average lot size is 22,768 square feet or 0.52 acres. They did so their original proposal had 1 lot in this corner and then the stormwater facility. They changed that to 2 lots in the stormwater facility after that. So these numbers have been tweaked ever so slightly, but the overall lot size and area is the same. The southern property has 14 lots. The average lot size is 22,394.8 square feet with 0.51 acres. And there's about 56% of this property that'll be kept in common open space. Let's see. And then as far as the comprehensive plan considerations, I know someone did their homework and did review it very well and carefully. There are some comments that the Plan Commission should be aware of. The 1991 plan did not have any properties in the agricultural category, but it was reinstated in the 2009 comprehensive plan due to a lack of development pressure and to encourage development near the city center. The plan does acknowledge that these lands may eventually succumb to development pressures and that the housing market, the plan doesn't acknowledge this, I guess I'm stating this, the housing market has changed significantly since that plan has been written. And the property is now served by sewer and water, which is a significant change in what the land can accommodate. There's low housing inventory and limited developable land in this area. And it does, in general, make sense to develop areas where sewer and water are available and preserve the rural character through lower density in areas that are served by private septic systems and wells. And rural character can still be preserved in these types of lands, such as developing through a conservation subdivision, which is being proposed by the applicant. The plan also suggests that development be proposed in a planned and coordinated manner compatible with neighboring land uses that preserves the character of existing neighborhoods. The plan states that properties adjacent to rural estate are expected to develop at comparable densities. The focus group did feel that the amended land use category was a reasonable transition from the anticipated development along 83 and the more rural estate lots that surround the subject property. They also recommended that development on the property occur as the plan unit development, which is being proposed by the developer. There was a vote against the land use change, as one of the folks in the audience suggested. But I think if you go back to the minutes, and I'd be happy to share them, this was actually being discussed for even higher density residential. And so it was going back and forth between higher density and then this lower density in order to protect those neighboring properties. And I believe that that individual just felt like because it was teetering back and forth in that regard, decided to vote against it. Let's see. The plan also does suggest that lands converted out of the agricultural category should be considered for conversion to rural estate. Rural estate has a 2-acre density minimum. However, the plan also suggests that the city does not have enough land area to accommodate anticipated growth based on the designated rural estate densities, which was a topic of the focus group. Based on costs associated with developing infrastructure and extending the city's services, it's just not always financially feasible to develop these converted lands to that rural estate, again, due to the fact that sewer and water is now available. The plan also suggests that lands that are in the low-density residential category do need to be served by sewer and water, so it's not an appropriate use for lands that are not. The plan also encourages development in areas which can be efficiently and economically served by existing streets and public utilities. So there is in this plan, and I think the applicant may want to come up and speak to, there is a proposed resolution if you so choose to move forward. That resolution is subject to 2 conditions. The conditions being that the property owner submit to the city and the city approve, and that should actually say the developer, submit to the city and the city approve a rezone and plan development conditional use for the development of properties, the tax keys for these 2 properties, and that all conditions of the rezone and plan development conditional use be met. And as you know, we go through a much more rigorous process and incorporate several conditions in order to accommodate an actual development. And then any development of the above conditioned property be connected to sanitary sewage disposal facilities owned and operated by the Delafield Heartland Water Pollution Control Commission and by a public water supply. The resolution, if you decide to vote, does have to be passed by a majority of the entire plan commission.
Amy, can I ask a question or should I wait? So for 9A, when you talk about low-density residential, is that analogous to rural estate? Meaning, is there an implied space?
Yeah, rural estate is a minimum, it's a category name, and it's a minimum of 2-acre density, whereas low density is a minimum of 1-acre density, so they are different.
Totally up to the planning commission if there's questions or clarity you might need from the applicant. I think it would be okay to bring them up, but if you don't feel the need to do that, to get any clarifications from them, we can keep proceeding without them and bring them up in the order on the agenda, which would be after A and B.
Amy, is it safe to say, do this lot, for if somebody, city said it has to be 2 acres, you run the risk of losing some of that conservation because they've got to get a certain amount of houses there and some of that green space goes away, or how, is there any?
No, well, I mean, if it's a 2-acre density, it's going to be about half of the number of
Yep.
lots, but that doesn't mean they may consume just, I mean, I don't know, but they
Yeah.
could consume the same amount of space or consume the space that abuts Nagawicka Road or the property edges.
They could consume more in terms of,
Where here, so the areas that are not, I don't know if you want to call that yellow, the actual lots themselves, those are all in common ownership and are preserved in open space.
yeah.
You know, and he does have, they're hard to see on this map, but there are proposed trails. There's a public trail that will be proposed on the north, and again, this gets a little bit more specific to the development itself, but there is a public trail proposed on the north side of Nagawicka Road. It extends to the south and along the western property line on the south side of Nagawicka Road, which then extends to the cul-de-sac to the south
Woodside.
of that. What was that?
Woodside Court.
Woodside Court. And then there's also, if you can see these gray lines up here, that's a private trail that's intended for the owners to enjoy and then have access to the bridle trail. One thing the engineers would look at carefully here is erosion that does occur in that bridle trail area. So the applicant would need to demonstrate that they can manage the stormwater and prevent that erosion from occurring.
That northern part up there where all that open space is, that's where it really slopes down. Doesn't it?
Yeah, so the steep slopes are being protected.
Amy, where's the bridle path on this picture?
It is right on the northern, it runs along the entire northern property line, running east and west. And then it runs the border of that, the subdivision to the north. And then they are, if you look at the landscape plan, they're proposing some seating areas, a seating bench on the north and south side overlooking the pond.
So, yeah, Amy, what I was asking, that I was trying to make the point, if it's not a point to make, please correct me, but any developer, if they had a 2-acre minimum, could go in and redo this whole land where it's not as environmentally pleasing to our strategy, to the area. It's kind of my point. Like, 1 versus 2 is not the panacea of it defines, safety in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, look and feel of the area. That's what I was kind of reading in as I was thinking all this. Can I think like that? Is that logical?
Yeah, I mean, you could theoretically have a development. I mean, I don't know what somebody would come in and
Right.
propose. Somebody might build one house on all the acreage.
But they can't build in that conservation area, correct?
Right.
So the isolated natural area could have one house in it. I think it's about 5.67 acres, and they're limited to a 1 unit per 5-acre density. So if somebody else came in here, they could build a house in the isolated natural area, whereas the developer is proposing to protect that. So there would be a restriction on the subdivision plat that we would likely require. I would recommend we would require it that they have to preserve that in its entirety.
Can you force a conservation subdivision in a certain area?
Can we force
Yeah,
it?
via zoning. If this was to be approved to be RE1, somebody could just build boxes in instead of doing it as a conservation?
Yeah, I would say as part of the rezone, you can state that the rezone is subject to a conservation subdivision, but in general, like the zoning code does not have required PUDs. Some municipalities do slate areas that must be developed as a PUD. But you're in a position now where they need a land use plan and a rezone amendment, and so you could condition those reviews accordingly.
Isn't this kind of similar to that subdivision up on the northwest
Northwest
side?
corner, so,
North
yeah, this
Hawthorne?
is similar to Hawthorne Farm.
It's also a conservation subdivision,
right.
protecting a lot of natural area.
Yeah.
Hawthorne Farm is a 2-acre density, but they do not have public water either.
So Amy, you mentioned rural estate, and I don't want to get too wonky here, but we're talking about going to rural estate 1 acre. We still use that moniker for, that label for the 1 acre zoning district that we're going to. And so the
Yes.
idea is that is it our land use plan that allows the kind of natural conversion of agriculture into RE2? And what we're doing here is taking that
Yeah.
to twice the density by going RE1? Is that what you're
Yeah,
distinguishing
well,
between?
so it's not, so keeping them separate, the land use plan is going from agricultural to low-density residential.
Right.
It's low-density residential. The land use plan suggests that if you are in agricultural, you can have this conversion to RE2. They anticipate a conversion taking place. The plan acknowledges that lands aren't going to stay in agricultural use forever, and so it anticipates RE2. And so this would be that next level that requires the amendment. And then the zoning is still, I think, to Tim's point, that zoning is RE1, which is still 1 acre rural estate. So the city still considers it a more rural zoning district. It's just not 2 acre, it's 1 acre rural.
Amy, you said Hawthorne Hills is RE2?
That is RE2, is that the
Okay.
2 acre category? Yes.
And how big are the lots?
Half acre.
They're the same thing. So they're kind of
They
doing
are
the
also
same
half
thing.
acre lots. It's just over a larger land mass total.
I think it was Alderman Barron's and this was about 6 or 7, maybe a little bit more than that, years ago. Well, about that. We looked at the idea of conservation subdivisions as a way to lower the requisite lot sizes in this low density district so that you could do that and maintain more of the natural forest as opposed to divvying them all up into lots. So you could essentially look at the plot of land that you're developing. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you have let's say it's an even number like 100 acres and you convert it to RE2, you'd still put down 50 homes, but you could put them on half acre lots and you'd have a lot more free space that nobody would be maintaining. It'd kind of be natural. As opposed to cutting them all up into 52 acre parcels where someone could cut corner to corner and have a football field and a soccer field and play sets and swimming pools and stuff. So the idea is to create those buffers between neighboring subdivisions and that to protect the rural area. That was the intent.
Yeah, and this just, it allows the developer to be more creative than doing the cookie cutter development. So they can do more with those common open space areas and provide an amenity to the entire subdivision. Or if they all had their own lot, they wouldn't be able to enjoy these open areas. It's a very common form of development and desirable from the standpoint of the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission and UW-Madison Planning Program in Milwaukee. Conservation subdivisions are typically considered more desirable than the standard conventional subdivision.
There's one way of looking at that, because these homeowners would be invested into that open space also, is that instead of me having an acre of land, I'm going to go down to half acre so that I and my neighbors can share this great open space. Because they're also invested in that open space, I would think.
They are, is the answer, yeah.
Right. It's another way to look
Shared
at
in
it.
common.
Right.
Yeah.
It's another way to look at it. Like, I'm going to sacrifice this so that I can have this great open space.
And they would be required, just like Hawthorne Farm, they would have to submit a management plan and they would be required to maintain it as part of their homeowners association group.
Yeah.
So the footprint for Hawthorne Farms would be twice as big as this, based upon the density, even though the lot sizes are half.
Lot sizes are half acre. They have more green space surrounding it.
And the default, the default for the city plan would have been RE2.
That's what the land use plan suggests.
So the
That
land
when
use
that,
plan says RE2, but we have this flexibility with PUD that says, you know what, it doesn't have to be 2 acres every one of them. We can make them smaller if there's more space allotted. Okay.
well, I just want to make sure that everybody's understanding it correctly. The half acre lot is coming out of the zoning code. It's the conditional use that's allowing the half acre lot. So whether it's 2 acre density, 1 acre density, or 5 acre density, they could get that flexibility through the PUD.
All right, any other questions?
I think to waylay some of the concerns that I heard was the developer was saying that these were going to be ranch-style homes and not 2 stories, is what I had heard originally. He's back there. Could we ask him? Because some of the neighbors were concerned about that, because I did hear that in some of their speeches. They were worried about some huge house, 2-story house.
Yeah,
next
so
to them.
we just have to stay on this agenda
okay.
item.
All right.
Right?
All right.
If I think it's fair to bring them up for a few specific questions, but we don't want to start discussing their specific development
All right.
under this item.
I'm
right?
I'm always
So
concerned
we got to be
about.
careful how we do that.
I'm
'Cause there's
always
really-
concerned about
there's
his
really-
citizens, though.
Yeah, there's really 2 things, right? It's the land use, and then the development is a separate conversation,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, because you can always say yes to the land use, but have development, the actual plan, have to have modifications to get,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the change implies higher density. I guess that was
Yes.
my question. So we're not just, when I'm looking at 9A, my first thought was 9A was required if we're going to convert this from agricultural to residential. But it takes one step further, saying it's not just residential, it's more dense than whatever default would be, which was RE2. Nice.
Yes.
Stated
Yep.
that properly,
Yes.
Amy? Okay.
So are we, if we make a recommendation for 9A, are we committing ourselves to 1 acre density here, or this is just going to low density residential, saying that the next step would be the zoning in Part B?
So if you pass the resolution, you are amending the land use, you're recommending, excuse me, that the council amend the land use plan to low-density residential. It would be subject to the rezoning, and it would be subject to the PUD conditional use.
And the rezoning would be RE3 or RE2, RE1, or?
RE1 is proposed by the applicant.
Right.
And is the next item on the agenda.
More questions, more discussion, otherwise we're looking for a motion.
So just so I'm clear, the land use is just one step, and then the development is a second, so- right?
Yes, the land use plan amendment helps the development take place.
Yep.
I will say, the nice thing about having a development take place is you can see what it means,
Yep.
what it actually looks like, instead of making assumptions as to what 1 acre looks and feels like. But it is coincidental. The focus group reviewed all of these properties outside of and unrelated to the applicant's proposal. He happened to come in after the focus group and before we moved it forward for formal review. So they aren't, we're not changing the land use plan and zoning because somebody came in and proposed a development, if that makes sense.
But we are changing, though, and I guess I want to make sure I understand that, the implication of going from RE2 to RE1.
2 acre,
Yeah.
right?
We do 9A, if we approve 9A, that's what we're saying, is we're really allowing for RE1.
Low-density residential. What's confusing about the land use plan and the zoning is the categories are really similar but a little bit different.
Okay.
So on the land use plan, it's low-density residential. Zoning is RE1.
What's an alternative to low-density residential?
Rural estate is 2 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, my point before was 2 versus 1 might not be a big factor in conservation. But intuitively, everybody thinks, oh, 2 is better than 1 if you don't want density. But you could, 2 acre, not have as good of a plan. I'm not saying
Agreed.
that's, so maybe not get too hung up on 2 versus 1, what's going through my head.
So all this is going for recommending from agricultural to low density specifically, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
There's 2 conditions. Oh, there is something that I forgot to mention. We've been focusing on the Spheres development. The resolution does include amending the whole overall land use plan to include all amendments through 2021, and it does show the subject property amended. Obviously, if you didn't amend the subject property, we would take that out, that change out of the map. But there's a map included in the packet, which includes Hawthorne Farm, which was approved by Seatman, and then it includes an amendment in the southeast corner of C and 94. There was one little square owned by the bank, which was not in the office. I believe it's business and office category. It's now in there. So these are already approved properties that are now being shown on the map. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
I'll make the motion to recommend it to Common Council to amend the zoning district from agriculture to R1.
To low density.
Oh, first go to the
Or what is it?
To low density.
agenda
Low
before.
density. Low density.
The land
Okay.
use.
Low density, and to include this in the zoning land use map and all items up until 2021, was it? Because there were items that were to be included in the map.
Yep, the resolution also recommends adoption of the updated land use plan map, which is inclusive of all amendments through 2021 in addition to the subject parcels.
Okay. And all conditional uses up until then, okay.
Is that everything, Amy?
Yeah, so you're making a motion to adopt the enclosed resolution that recommends adoption of the amendment to the subject parcels from the agricultural to the low-density residential category.
Right.
And includes the adoption of the land use map, which is inclusive of the amendments through 2021 in addition to the subject parcels.
Right.
Yeah.
You got that?
I already had it in here.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ed. All right, is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 9B. DELC 0781989004 and DELC 0781989005. Unknown address on Negawick Road East, owner Joe's Legacy Farm LLC, applicant John Spheres. Applicant is requesting the Planning Commission recommend approval of the requested rezoning from A1 Agricultural District to RE1, 1 acre rural estate district. Amy?
I don't think I really need to add much here. We pretty much just had the discussion. So unless you have any questions, I don't have anything to add. There is a recommended motion if you choose to approve it.
Now this
Yeah,
is
just-
for the opposite side.
Just to restate what I was saying, me personally, I think 2 versus 1 isn't the driver for what do you do on the property. So I'm fine with making that clear. That's why I'm going down these passive questions. I don't think 2 versus 1 is the driver of preserving what some of the folks here had voiced concerns about, which are legit. They're real. I mean, I don't live too far from this property, so I understand what they're saying, but I'm okay with making the commentary. I'm okay with this motion because I don't think it's more about what the developer does and how it's constructed.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve 9B.
I would be, do you see the motion in the packet,
Gonna make me
in the staff report?
And Amy, this is where you would include the planned use development conservation subdivision as part of that process?
This is the rezone. So I'll just tell you what the report says. The report says motion to, because you have to recommend common council.
Okay.
That's why I wanted you to read the motion. Motion to recommend common council amend the zoning district of the official zoning map, which is adopted as part of Chapter 52 zoning of the municipal zoning code of the city of Delafield from the A1 agricultural and residential holding district to RE1 1 acre rural estate district, subject to common council adopting an ordinance that amends the land use plan to the low density residential category and subject to the approval of a plan unit development conditional use prior to any development taking place.
What page are you on, Amy? I was looking at
Page 4,
Well, of the report.
yeah,
on the PDF.
yeah.
Got it? What page?
I will tell you.
I got it here. So I'll make a motion to recommend to the Common Council to amend the zoning district of the official zoning map, which is adopted as part of Chapter 52, zoning of the municipal zoning code of the city of Delafield from A1 agriculture residential holding district to RE1 1 acre rural estate district, subject to the Common Council adopting an ordinance that amends the land use plan to the low density residential category, subject to the approval of a planned unit development conditional use prior to any development.
I'll second.
All right, is there any? Bob. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 9C, DELC 0781989-004 and DELC 0781989-005. Unknown address on Nagawicka Road East, owner Jones Legacy Farm LLC, applicant John Spheres. Applicant is requesting the Planning Commission discuss and provide feedback regarding the proposed content related to the planned unit development, conditional use for a conservation-type single-family subdivision, and schedule a public hearing for the same. Would the applicant please come on up? Amy, you want to give us an overview?
Yeah, so the applicant did propose the 29 lot subdivision at the last meeting. This is an updated plan. I already mentioned they just swapped one of these lots for a stormwater facility. The engineers have reviewed the plans and they do believe there's enough space, but they do need to submit more detailed information to show that the engineering will work. And that they will not cause erosion onto those adjacent properties to the north as part of their project. They did submit a more detailed landscape plan since the last meeting, so you'll see they're proposing trees along Nagawicka Road, additional trees, shrubs, and ground cover vegetation throughout the property. And then there's a seating area along, you can see it here, along the pond, right here on the north side, and then also on the south side. And then they also are proposing monument signage at the entrance of the subdivision and like a fence feature at the corners to add a little landscaping enhancement to the site.
All righty, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm John Spheres with Spheres Land Development.
I'm Matt Spheres.
And I'm Alex Spheres. Some of you may not be familiar with us, but we've been developing high-quality subdivisions in Waukesha County for over 45 years. Some of the subdivisions we've developed are Dover Bay, The Arbors, Mary Hill Park, Hunt Club Farms, Saddlebrook Farms, the preserve at Beaver Lake, and numerous other subdivisions, with a total of 38 subdivisions to date. We're here tonight to request the rezoning from A1 to RE1 with a PUD. And this is consistent with the recommendation of the focus group and also the intended use per the contemplated zoning of the 2030 comprehensive plan. This development, as you know, would be a transition from medium to low density. Inevitably, this parcel of land will be developed, as the city has it on their master land use plan to be developed with sewer and water. I believe your original plans way back, the land was to be 2-acre lots without sewer and water. However, that has changed. We intend to develop Nagawicca Heights in a first-class manner and will be an asset to the neighborhood, the neighboring homes, and the city. Most of the time, our developments tend to increase property values of adjacent homes and subdivisions, not detract from them.
And then in terms of the isolated natural areas, we are protecting them, and they have been delineated and staked. The isolated natural area that is staked at the drip line, so it's not even at the base of the trees, it's at the drip line, so the bases of the trees are going to be protected. In addition, the isolated natural area backs up to the bridle paths, so the trails won't be affected or altered in any way, as they are nowhere near the lots.
And I'm a horseman, so I do want to protect the paths. And Rob, I think you might have some input on that.
Rob Davey, Lake Country Engineering. Since our last meeting, I have completed a preliminary stormwater report and a preliminary grading plan. We do show that we're going to meet the city ordinance of reducing, maintaining or slowing down the 1- and 2-year storm events, flow off site, and reducing the 10-year post-storm event to an existing 2 and a 100-year storm event to an existing 10. So with my stormwater report, which Mike will review, we are dramatically reducing the higher storm events which cause that erosion. One of the ways that we're doing that is there's a major swale running through the isolated natural area, and we're taking the 7.9 acres that used to drain through there and reducing that to 1.5 acres, and then rerouting the rest of that water to other stormwater basins on site so that we can maintain all the flow leaving the site to what I just mentioned.
And then for the site, there's a total of 35.33 acres known as Joe's Legacy Farm. The Geeson family has owned this land for over 107 years, and as Mrs. Geeson said, it is time to sell. And as you saw, she was here this evening and spoke on it. So.
There are going to be 29 lots, though 30 are allowed, with a minimum of half-acre lot size and 30,000 square feet of open space per lot for a total of 20.29 acres of open space to match the proposed density. This meets or exceeds the city's requirements. These are huge lots for sewer and water with curb and gutter. Most city lots are less than a half acre. The north property has 41% of open space with 1,650 feet of roads, and the south property has 40% open space with 1,400 feet of roads.
And then just some of the advantages with Nagawicca Heights, it's low density conservation cluster development with open space. So the open space is good use of land and a good buffer for the neighboring properties. And then with that, there's a total of 20.29 acres of open space out of the total of the 35.33 acres based on the 30,000 square foot open space, which is required per lot, which is a huge amount of open space. And then there are 29 lots exceeding half acre, lot with sewer and water and curb and gutter. The lot size average 21,780 square foot lots minimum with 110 foot width at the front yard setback. And as we've mentioned, many builders are telling us that ranch homes are the #1 request, and ranch homes usually need a wider building pad at the setback. And then, as I've said before, we are going to protect the isolated natural areas, and we also want to protect the area as we see that as a benefit as well. And then These will be upper-end homes valued between 1.2 and 1.5 million, and there may even be some higher. And right now, with the current taxes being generated on these two parcels, is only $80.68. Negawicka Heights would bring a tax base of $34.8 to $43.5 million to the city, and generate $390,550 to $488,196 per year in taxes. This is calculated based on using a mill rate of 89% and $12.61 per thousand.
We will be requiring traditional homes to be kept within the charm and character of the city of Delafield. There will be 2 private parks with benches, 3 ponds with fountains, an alley, birch trees leading to the existing apple orchard, and beautiful landscaping throughout. There will be limestone and white fence entryways, which are working on now conceptually. We will install an 8-foot wide asphalt pedestrian trail as shown on the plans, which is required by the city. We will also have private mode trails within the subdivision for the lot owners. There will be low traffic as access off of 83 is off of 83, which can handle the additional traffic. The road access points meet all the requirements as well.
And again, we are known for creating high-end subdivisions, and our plan for Negawicka Heights is to be very high-end development for the city, the neighbors, and for serious land development, and we hope you agree. Do you have any questions for us?
Did you want me to play that video?
If you've got a short, quick video, if you can, just for a minute. Just
Okay.
basically just shows a quick overview of some of the subdivisions that we have done in the past. That's the type of pond with a fountain we'd have in it. I think that's Mary Hill. We created all the ponds in the middle of a farm field. That's Saddlebrook Farms. Those are larger parcels. And that's the preserve at Beaver Lake with smaller lots too.
Oops, go ahead. I just want to point out again the flexibility that they're proposing as part of the conditional use. So the minimum lot size in RE1 is 1 acre. They're proposing 0.5 acres. Minimum lot width is 140 feet. They're proposing 110. Front yard setback is typically 50 feet. They're proposing 35 feet. Rear setback is 20 feet. There's no change. Side setback is typically 20 feet, and they are proposing 15 feet. There is no floor area ratio. I will say and that's because typically the lot sizes are larger. In Hawthorne Farms, they did agree to a 0.35 floor area ratio, so that's something you may want to consider, which would limit the overall size of the home allowed on the lots. And then minimum open space is typically 30,000 square feet. With a PUD, they would be providing that through the common open space areas, and they would have to match the zoning at a minimum.
Amy, where are they reducing the setbacks? Was it just one?
It's the front setback is going from 50 to 35, and side setback 20 to 15.
So the front is along Negawicka Road?
The front is along like their whatever road system they put in. So
Okay.
their driveway comes out, whatever road their driveway is coming
see,
off
gotcha.
of.
Any of the internal roads.
The internal roads,
Yeah,
right.
and again, the reason for it is we stated, most of the builders we've been talking to are stating that many of the buyers, most of the buyers today are looking for ranch homes, so we're looking to give them a bigger building envelope. Some people may do 2 stories, but majority of them want 1 story.
Okay. And then the side setbacks, is that also, did you say?
Yep, from 20 feet to 15 feet. And this is from RE1 typical standard to the proposed flexibility.
And again, for the same reason.
And that's an internal setback from house to house?
House to lot line.
House to lot line, okay. And what about the perimeter setbacks or to the neighbors? Is that consistent?
That is dictated by the subdivision that you end up approving. So, it's based on whatever you end up deciding to approve. So I think, the pinch point to the neighbors to the north is right here.
Okay.
And, and the one person in the audience said that's about 20 feet, and that's probably about, what is it, Rob?
We've maintained a minimum of 35 feet around the perimeter of the subdivision from our lots to the, our subdivision lot line.
How deep is that lot?
And, pardon me?
How deep is that lot about?
The one in question?
Right.
I don't know.
About.
Probably 125 feet, 130 feet. So that if they're gonna build towards the front of it with a 50-foot and a 35, they're gonna have 45 to 50 feet plus the 35 feet. So we're looking at around 85 to 90 feet before we, from the house to our property line.
Okay, and then just so I understand, and I'm trying to address, I think what I heard one of the citizens ask a question of, on the north side, that lot you have on the map at the corner, you have, the neighbor's property, and then you have the horse trail, correct? What's the distance from the horse trail to that neighbor's property line?
I don't know. I've never really looked at it.
I think that the horse trail is about 20 feet wide, if I remember right.
I think you're right. And
So do we know that total distance? I'm just trying to get an idea that, I know you're set back from the horse trail. I'm just trying to understand how far back.
If he's saying the minimum distance is 35 feet, did you say 35 feet?
Yes.
Plus the horse trail is 20, that's 55 feet, plus they have a 20-foot rear setback, so the house
to
will
the
not
lot
be any
line,
closer than 75 feet.
But to the lot line, we're saying 35 feet. Is that what I heard you say?
The lot line would be 35 feet to the north lot line, which is also,
The edge of the horse trail.
yeah, and then the horse trail's another 20.
So around the perimeter, you have 35 feet to either the beginning of the horse trail or the neighboring property where there isn't a horse trail.
Right, and most likely a person would not build way back to the end of.
Oh, yeah, I'm not talking about the building, I'm just talking about the property lines.
Correct.
And that's true for the south side, southeast? Got
Yes,
35 feet?
we've maintained a 35-foot landscaping perimeter around the whole development. In some cases, it's more.
Which would be common space, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll be maintained by the
It's
homeowners
independent of their
association.
lot, right?
Pardon me?
It's independent of their lot.
Yes.
It's common space.
Correct, and
So
that'll
there's
be
still a
governed-
distance of their backyard plus that 35 feet.
Sure. At least 20 feet. So you're looking at 55 feet before you would get to the neighboring property line. And probably more, because I don't think people are going to push their house all the way to the back of their yard.
I don't think we'd approve it that far back either, so.
So what traffic information do you guys have to share with us? Have you done a traffic study? I'm trying to remember when they came for the preliminary. I'm not recalling that was something we asked them to do.
We did.
What are your thoughts? I mean, you made a comment about traffic. Can you give us some more details on that?
Basically, we verified that the access points, we checked with the county highway department, that the access points are in the correct location. We did not do a traffic study yet, though.
Okay. Do you generally know the numbers for this number of
No.
single families, the amount of trips it would typically generate on either a daily or weekly, whatever the
I'd be guessing
scale
if I
is?
did, but we can do a traffic study.
You could do a traffic, I mean, I think it's pretty low, but I don't know the number either, so,
I think if you want to have the information, we can do it.
yeah. I think it would make the neighbors feel better if we had that, myself.
Don't we have to keep in mind for 83 right there, that that's the part that hasn't been widened to 4 lanes?
Yeah, I mean, that's a highway, right? So we have no control,
Exactly.
if the county decides they want to widen it,
State.
that's, the state, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. DOT.
It's coming because it already is through Quantico all the way through Wales
Yeah, yeah.
to just about below the hill here.
Yeah.
It's 4 lanes already, so we
It-
know it's coming. So that too will also help, I would think, with traffic, because 29 houses being there with the traffic, I would think in time, it would help if there was any problems, that in the future, that a lot of that will be alleviated.
So Dan, can you give a reasonable statement on that?
I mean,
given
you're
your
right, it's been
experience?
done to the south. Generally, those are easier areas to do. This has been a tough area to do. The DOT did
The type
a
of traffic you would
study many years ago, and certain communities were okay, certain weren't, and kind of let it go. This is gonna be fairly low, and at Public Works, we do have a traffic engineer who would look at that. I mean, Art could give us an idea what that number would be.
Yeah.
But
From
my
what
gut
you know,
feeling
and I'm
is-
not trying to put you on the spot.
No,
I mean, we just
it's
want to
a-
wait till the traffic study, but
It's a
somebody
lower
mentioned-
generator of traffic,
It's a lower gen-
subdivisions are.
And somebody had mentioned maybe a light would have to go in. Would that seem like something
If
the
that
state
did, it
would?
would be for the bigger area at such time that the rest of the geese and parcels were getting developed.
Okay.
DOT would absolutely look at that when if the highway was going to go to 4 lanes.
Yeah.
I'll comment a couple things. One, I know early on when you first proposed this, my concern was, and it still is, the curb appeal as far as the people that are driving to the lots all around it are between 2 and 4 acres that surround the area, and everyone did attest to the fact that they understood it was going to be developed at some point. They were on farmland too, right? So that remains a concern of mine, is that they chose to live in an area that was on these 4-acre lots, 2-acre lots. So as much, and I know the plans call for it. I've seen your other subdivisions; they are screened pretty well from the road. Kind of like children, best seen but not heard. Is that what you're supposed to say? Or not seen or heard, I think is the goal here. There's a lot of positives as far as the connectivity of the trails. I think that making that connection to the southwest is a nice perk for the area. And someone mentioned not being part of the area. Well, that connectivity is going to help connect some of these neighborhoods that aren't connected right now. Some of my ambivalence here is the type of subdivision that this is going to be unique to the area it's surrounded by. I mean, there's people real close to it that have outbuildings and maybe a burn pit or a compost pile and run dirt bikes or something in their backyard, and this isn't that kind of neighborhood. And so there's going to be a little bit of a culture clash. So anything that can be done from a landscaping, trees, all that berms, all that fun stuff to connect them, but then shield them. You know what I mean? I think is really important for the harmony of the area. And I think as much as you can convey those types of aesthetics to the neighbors that exist, the better off we'll be as we go through the process as far as their understanding of what it is. Because my knee-jerk reaction too, if I was not knee-jerk, they're given a couple days. Some found out about it today. Would be to say, wow, there's a lot of homes right in my backyard. There's a farm there. Any kind of communication you can provide the area to help them understand how this is going to look and feel to them will help. It'll help the process.
We'll have our landscape architect look at it, because we do some screening, but we do have on the north side of the road, there is the public path too.
Right.
So,
That's all good. I mean, there's there's a balance of amenities as well as some congestion that's coming. You get both, and so everyone's got to get out their whiteboards and put the pros and the cons and see where they fall. I'm really in the middle. I live in a neighborhood where we're RE2, yet it's a planned unit development. So part of that formula, I've been there for 21 years. Part of that formula incorporated the roads, so now the lots are smaller, and some of it's the park. So the average lot size, the average home per acre is where I live is close to this. Beautiful area, beautiful subdivision. It's Valley Road Farms, and I'm on the circle, and we have about 1.3 acres per house on that circle, which is pretty close to this. These are like 1.2-ish, somewhere in there. even though they're half-acre lots, but the whole subdivision.
One of the things that we would do anyway is like some of the lots back up to the public path. And sometimes people object to the public walking behind their house. So definitely that would be screened. So we'll look at all the screening too, because I think the isolated natural area is a great buffer. I think the parks with the ponds, we're trying to keep it as natural as possible, but still, have plenty of open space. If you notice, there's a lot of open space between the lots in this subdivision too. So, and again, we want to be a good neighbor too. So we will look at it.
Is there a fence, a decorative fence, like a split rail type fence between the public path and the back of the neighbors' properties?
There is a barbed wire fence.
No. In your development. I mention it because it's a very nice feature that the Seatmans have in their development up there. They have the path, then they have a 2-stroke wood white fence. It really helps with that rural character, right?
We were planning on putting, some of the white fencing, but it depends on what area you're talking about. We're talking about the entranceways, probably somewhere.
I'm talking about Long Nagawicka Road on either side.
Nagawicka.
Take a look at the Seatman's fence. I don't think it's very expensive, but it really helps to make it feel more rural.
Is that the black fencing?
It's dark brown.
Is it dark brown?
Yeah, really
Dark brown.
Because in a lot of our subdivisions, we do the black fencing too.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the color. It's more about the style, right?
Right. Definitely, we would do landscaping along there too. So I'll look into the fencing. Some people like the fencing. Some people don't because it depends on the maintenance of the fences.
Yeah, in 8 to 10 years, you're gonna have to paint it.
Yep. Usually it's every 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Because we have other subdivisions with fencing, and we have a reserve put aside for every 4 or 5 years that it's repainted.
Same house count? I know December was preliminary rough, but is it the same house count from December?
Yes. Yeah. Physically couldn't get any more lots in.
Have we done, you, my first night, have you done a development similar to this? I'm struggling with the arithmetic. Just, Tim put it more eloquently, but I'm just struggling with the arithmetic. We're going from 2-acre lots to 1-acre lots to fitting within the PUD. And I get the concept of a PUD and why we want to build up the space, but we've made both cuts on that. Have we ended up with a development this small with this many houses anywhere else in the city within the last? I mean, I'm looking at the area, all the developments all the way down the hill to Waterleaf, and it's all acre or more per house. And I get it, you're saving a lot of room, but has it been done?
I'd say this one looks really close to Carriage Hill is what I'd expect out of that. That's just north of where we vote.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it close to Seatman's new development too? Similar, other than they don't have sewer, if I remember.
Yeah, actually, the Seatman ones would be close too. It's just there's more land to the north between them and the railroad tracks. I mean, it would look very similar to this. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So from a practical standpoint, Hawthorne Hills is similar in terms of the land that's being used as part of the PUD is to the back, similar to the land that goes down the grade towards the lake is in this development. In other words, the land you don't see is still part of the equation.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, we followed the city ordinance as far as the percentage of open space that's required.
I would say, in my opinion, that if you drove down the street on this one, especially in the north part of this, it just depends which way you're looking. You'd end up with the same curb appeal to one that's going in north of St. Joan of Arc Church, and this one would be pretty close.
Yep. You're right.
They're half-acre lots with a lot of land behind them.
And Rob, can you go over again about, right now it's a farm field, which we know from trying to protect Lake Nagawicka that those types of situations are the ones that create the most amount of runoff, have the most amount of sediment carried into it. And in this part of the city, I mean, it's basically a ditch that goes into a pipe that eventually gets into the lake. What is the percentage of, you gave some numbers before, and I just thought it would be important that we consider those numbers as how much, what the difference is between this development being in as far as runoff leaving the property compared to if it was left alone.
All right, so just, we'll look at the middle area on the north side. I have this whole site broken out into 3 basic drainage areas. There's the north middle, the northwest, and then the south all flows into basically one area. So if we look at the north middle area, let's make sure, the existing flows that currently come off here, and this is assuming it's a meadow, not a row crop, because I looked over the last 20 years of this property, and it's about 50-50 between meadow and row crop. So I chose meadow, which has a lot less runoff than a row crop does. So if this were a row crop, there'd be more existing. So based on it being a meadow, the existing 1-year storm rate is 3.81 CFS, and we're proposing 1.94. The existing 2-year is 5.19 CFS, and we're proposing 2.47. Now here's where we really reduce it, where the existing 10-year is 11.07, and we're bringing it down to 4.54, which is less than the 2-year. And then when you look at the 100-year storm event, which really causes that erosion, we have 25.62, and we're reducing it to 9.02, which is below the 10-year. So those are in the city ordinance.
Right, those are.
And we're meeting those, so we're really, I don't know how to put it, with the city ordinance, you're making up for past amends on subdivisions 30, 40 years ago that didn't have anything. Like you said, it was a ditch. So we're trying to make up for that. And with this less CFS, we're not going to see the erosion coming off. And we're holding this water on site more. So in the series of the 3 wet ponds that I have, we're meeting the 80% total suspended solids. And then we're also meeting 25% infiltration of a 2-year storm event. So this whole thing, the way I have it designed right now, is meeting the city ordinance, which is a lot stricter than the DNR's. DNR ordinance only makes you look at the 1- and 2-year storm event, and they could care less about the 10 and 100.
Wow.
So we're meeting the city, but we're going up and over and above even the county ordinance on this.
In a nutshell, you're cutting the stormwater runoff considerably.
Yes.
And you achieve that by grading?
Pardon me?
You achieve that by grading towards the ponds? Is
Yes.
that how that's achieved? Okay.
Yeah.
You direct the water
Well,
towards the...
also with the curb and gutter and the roads, we're going to have storm sewer. So that storm sewer is going to carry the water into the ponds off the roadways. And I've got it designed where all the front yards, I think all the front yards are drained to the road. So what wouldn't get into a pond would only be a rear yard, which is mostly grass. And that reduces, well, it's actually the same as a meadow for the stormwater runoff.
And mostly what Rob is talking about is volume. We also have a water quality part to that. So pre-development, you can imagine a lot of silts are coming out of the farm fields where now it's going to be lawns and be cleaner water.
And then one of the other thing, and I just think it's an important point that everybody understand is, historically we didn't have city water and sewer to this location, and now it's required that a development connect to city water and sewer. Can you guys give us a general cost of what that is costing you in this development to get it all the way from where it is now on Highway 83 down to your, or wherever it is, down to your facility, and what a substantial, I believe a pretty substantial number that it is that any developer is going to have to figure out a way to pay for.
He's pulling out his calculator.
1,400
so it's
plus
gonna
what,
be a big number.
1,650?
It is considerable because
Oh,
with
yeah.
bringing the water from 83, and then plus I think that city's requiring the sewer to go further to the east to the other Geeson farm too, and the sewer has to be put in deeper there also. So the expense is more than normal, than a normal subdivision. As far as costs, I don't know if
So
you,
just a rough cost for the water main to bring it in from 83 is gonna be about $405,000. Just for the water main alone.
Is that just to get it to in
No,
front of the
that's
subdivision?
putting it in the development itself too.
Oh, in the
It's getting it
development.
from 83 down to, and through the
Through
development.
the development. Okay.
and then we still have stormwater, sewers we have to put in, and also sewer lines, right?
Sure, I would think it
Yeah.
cost more.
It's
Pardon me?
those kind of costs that make it very difficult to develop at 2 acres, right? Why
Correct.
this land has sat there as long as it has without a financially feasible development.
Nowadays, even a half-acre lot is big on sewer
And water.
and water, right? Yeah. Many cities are going quarter acre or less with sewer and water.
We looking at schedule a public hearing?
Okay, so two things. Do you have, do you have any specific feedback or information you need for the next meeting? I heard traffic analysis. Anything else?
I think I read in there something about materials used. Hybrids.
For landscaping? Or,
Or deed restrictions, you mean materials of the house?
House.
Yeah,
Oh.
we have that in our deed restrictions.
Yeah, I think that's where I read.
Yeah.
and that's in the packet, the draft deed restrictions are in there.
I was really surprised by all the specifics in there.
It-
How
it-
detailed it was.
It makes a big difference, and I know a lot of times I heard some subdivisions, they say that people don't maintain the common areas. Every one of our subdivisions that we've ever had is always maintained, and some subdivisions that are over 40 years old, they're beautifully maintained.
You may want to start a draft maintenance plan, be helpful,
Okay.
of the open space areas. And then if you don't need anything else and you're comfortable with what they're proposing, then you could schedule a public hearing for the next meeting. Or you could ask to wait until after council acts and schedule it for March. It's up to you. Either way, we can schedule it now. If council for some reason didn't approve the land use plan or rezoning, then we have that out there in the paper published for a February agenda and it can't really move forward. Or you can do it now, subject to the land use plan and rezone being approved, and then
Yeah.
it just wouldn't go, if it didn't get passed by council, we would just put it on the agenda for February and withdraw it.
Yeah, I think to withdraw it is probably the smarter option for the, assuming the applicant gets a favorable ruling, it keeps them on their timeline. If they don't get a favorable ruling, we just cancel it. The one thing I'd like to see is some renderings to help the neighbors understand what the view would look like from the road. And then if you can please meet with a couple of the citizens that have concerns about their adjacent properties and provide renderings of what landscaping you would provide to them to anticipate what they would see. Because I think it's important that their concerns are addressed and you make it the best effort you can to do that.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, and they, with digital technology now, when we did the, on 83, they were worried, the Smiley Barn was worried about the sign blocking it. So they took a picture from the highway and then you could do a rendering, right, to show. So maybe it doesn't cost a lot of money, you can do it quick. There might be a way to help them see that.
Okay.
All right, given that, I'll make a recommendation, motion to schedule a public hearing for the February meeting, subject to approval by the council for the land use plan and the rezoning.
Second.
Alrighty, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 10A is done. We are on to 10B. DELC 0803994, 2675 Sun Valley Drive. Owner E&K Land LLC. I'm sorry.
Well, that's
wanna-
okay. I mean, you can call it out. This item was withdrawn.
Yeah, it was
unfortunately.
withdrawn. Bubbles was withdrawn.
Really? That's like.
Very,
that's
very
worse.
disappointing.
I really wonder.
Yeah.
Kept thinking that's
my car
the
needs
best
a lot.
thing you
I
can
know.
get in that little lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently the acquisition of the land
Oh.
ultimately fell through.
Oh.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, my
So it's
God.
withdrawn.
oh. And it was so cute
Very
looking.
disappointing to all.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
And it would have looked perfect there.
Well, we're getting there.
Disappointed.
10C. Oh, I'm sorry, which 7 are you asking about? Yes, that was on the consent agenda, ma'am. We approved that an hour ago. Oh, okay. Well, I apologize for that. Yeah, we said the consent agenda, if you were on the consent agenda, you were approved. So hopefully you
Sorry.
enjoyed the extra hour you were here.
Oh, that is a bummer.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know when you'll be here next time, but we do have the hearing aid service. You can tie your hearing aids in.
For the extra hour, we'll make a plug for Studio 83 Pilates.
Right. Oh,
All right, we will move on to 10C. DELC 0798953, unknown address of 124 Genesee Street. Owner, Michelle Kelly. Applicant, Michelle and Mike Kelly. Applicant is requesting the Planning Commission review and provide feedback regarding a concept plan for a potential dental office building to be built on the subject property. Is the applicant here? Yep, come on up. Amy, would you give us an overview, please?
sure. So this is kind of what do you do first, the chicken or what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So the next agenda item, we are going to talk about the focus group's recommendation to amend a portion of downtown. This property happens to be in that, but I thought it would just be nice to see what they're proposing so you can see what that amendment might mean ultimately. So if you're not comfortable getting too far into it, we can move on to the land use plan and rezone topic as part of this as well. But
And I think the logic was, we had a preliminary on the last one before, and we're doing a different
Yeah.
order because they haven't had a preliminary yet.
yes, you haven't seen this one yet. So anyway, the subject property is in the northeast corner of Genesee Street and Poplar Path, which is, the gateway into downtown just north of 94. This is a double vacant lot, and just to the north of that is a residence. So they bought the lot with the residence and this. It was always in common ownership, and they are renting out the residential unit and then wanting to use this separately as its own property, which it legally is. It is currently zoned and planned for residential purposes. It's R3, single and two-family residential on the zoning, and it's medium-density residential on the land use plan, which allows 4 units per acre. But what they would like to do is put in a dental office. And so here's the site plan. I'm just going to real quickly scroll through the plans, and we can come back to them all, just so you have an idea of what they're proposing to do with the property. And I'll go back to the site plan here. So this property was recently part of the Economic Development Focus Group study. They did recommend low-intensity, I'll say professional office type uses. And that was specific. So essentially they thought this might be a really good area for what is now allowed as a home occupation in somebody's house, where you can have your office, but it can't make up more than a certain percentage of the living space, and you can't have the extra traffic and stuff like that. So they were talking more on those ends without having to have the residential component. So these properties could be used for residential or commercial purposes. The reason why they wanted it to be so limited to the, sorry, that's me. The reason why they wanted the property to be limited to the professional office is because they were worried about the traffic. There's very limited ability to get in and out from Genesee Street, and there's limited parking opportunity right now. But the applicant does have a unique parcel in that they would actually be able to access off of Poplar Path, and they have a double lot, so they do have a lot of room to put in a parking lot. And they are actually proposing a parking drive or parking access lane that would extend to the north lot line so that it could eventually be extended to the north, possibly providing the ability to have parking extend all the way to the bank on the far north end, which would give those other properties to the north opportunity to be accessed other than through Genesee Street as well.
And I just want to point out that house that you see in the picture on the screen to the north, the applicant owns that house as well.
Explain that drive again. There's 6 houses
Yeah,
between that corner where they want to develop and the bank.
Yes, give me a minute, it's working now.
Yeah, so this is a concept, Laura, to try to figure out a way that as this changes over time, that there's an ability to be able to access those properties other than increasing traffic or a stop sign or light onto Highway C.
So are we talking about a road
No,
or an
based.
alley?
Right, I think
We've been debating how we describe it, so that's an excellent question.
It can be private and be called a cross-access easement.
Yes, and that
Where
it
every
would be
property
an
owner agrees
easement,
to.
where the properties to the north would be the beneficiaries of that easement. And then they could do nothing with it, or they could do something with it in the future if they so chose.
Now, with an easement like that, would each property owner still own that piece of land?
Yes.
Yeah, they would just have the ability to access it, and it would be, theoretically, eventually it would be improved all the way to the north, and then they would all have to share the responsibility of long-term maintenance. What I would recommend is if we move forward, or if you move forward recommending approval of this type of use, that we do a feasibility study on whether or not that a parking path extending to the north is practical and feasible. There is some topography, and so we just need to make sure that it would work. So that would be a recommendation if you want to move forward. So right now, I think I had this written a little incorrectly in my report. So they do show setbacks and offsets that they are proposing. And I have in there they don't meet R3, but they actually do meet the setbacks and offsets for R3. I was considering Genesee Street the front setback, but Poplar Path would actually be the front setback, right, Scott? That's where the driveway would come off of. So they would meet that as the 50-foot setback, and then Genesee Street would be a corner setback, which would have the 30-foot. So they meet the existing zoning for that purpose. But otherwise, obviously, this project would require a land use plan amendment and rezoning, which we can talk about as part of the next agenda item. So I think for right now, what the applicant is interested in finding out is whether or not you support the concept in general and the level of development that they're proposing, and perhaps whether or not you like the look of the building, if you do think the development is reasonable. And then beyond that, we can probably refine the details, if the plan and zoning gets amended, similar to the previous request.
Are the owners here?
Yep, they're here,
All
so-
owners, are you dentists? Oh, you are, okay.
Can you tell us about why you're here and why you'd like to come to the city of Delafield?
I'm already in the city. I'm trying to build my own facility. So I currently rent in the city of Delafield. I'm off of Crossroads Court. And we purchased this with the intention of putting up our own facility to maintain own in the future. So I'm already currently a
Here.
here, so I'm just moving a street up
Yeah.
down the road a little bit more. And so it's, Delafield, obviously, from a business standpoint, is really hard to get a hold of land. So it's, this opportunity came up. It was something where we thought, obviously being the heart and soul of Delafield and coming into Delafield, having a nice building and something that would represent and have low traffic impact there, being the fact that I'm only open 28 hours a week. So I am not a busy office. I keep my office smaller and it's just me. I have a couple hygienists. So my traffic flow is relatively minimal and I'm only there Monday through Thursday. So I'm not going to impact people on Fridays, obviously, with traffic flow that way. The only thing that may be there would be us coming in and maintaining the yard, which is on that site. You can see the trash facility that would be there with a small little storage shed to the backside of it to just be able to store lawn maintenance and whatever else for us. So, but I'd like to stay here. I don't want to move my business if I don't need to. And it's, this is ideally the right place for us to go and still keep, our patient clientele in, happy and not having to travel too far because we have a lot of people that live real nearby to us. So,
Have you spoken with your neighbors to the east already?
I mean, I have. Nancy and them are here, so they're right next door. I've talked to them. Most of the neighbors knew what I was up to when we purchased the property, so there's a lot of people that have come and said hi to us and said things. I don't want to impact the people who live there. If they want to be there and still live there, our goal is to keep that house next door rentable at this point. So, I mean, we want to keep it as low impact to anybody around us in general. We would obviously create some landscaping to kind of, if it was a residential home or something, to block that so people don't have some privacy and not be interrupted by the business when it is in operation.
I
Michelle?
do appreciate how you kept your building looking like it belonged in the neighborhood.
It's like
I tried.
It's like a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to make it look like, like a home.
Yeah, it's a
with
nice
the,
look.
With the impact of Delafield and then, my long-term aspect is to be more nautical-like, which is kind of in the lake feel of Delafield and the lake country area in general. So I wanted to fit in the vicinity of the area and not make it stand out and be something that's super ultra modern and not in the realm of everything that's already here.
You,
Go ahead.
you said it's just you and a couple hygienists?
Yep.
8 ops?
In the long term, my goal is to, I made it buildable, like if it was something where if we added or changed the facility. So my current mindset is to kind of change my developmental of what I'm doing with my hygiene schedule. For me, I have 3 hygienists that are with me 3 days a week, so it's busy, and I'm working out of 2 rooms right now. So it's really hard for me to move. I don't think I'm going to develop all 8. It's something where if a potential, it's more for staging or for something for, storage and stuff like that. Being the fact that we're not putting a basement underneath the facility, trying to create some extra space. If it would become somebody like say in the future where I'm not there anymore and somebody wanted to bring in a second doctor or something like that, it would be relatively small, but it would still keep it to a point where it could be usable for somebody else. But I don't plan on going anywhere for quite some time. So, and from a dental standpoint, my business is I have hygienists that work for me and, when my facility and how I want to train my hygiene and everything like that, they would, there's a capability of having them do their own thing on the side and then having me do my stuff. And so it's to try and create the space that we could grow into it if we needed to, but I don't want to necessarily use all that space at this point.
Can you go to the plan view, Amy? I just have a couple comments. I think we should look at, and we usually do at Public Works, is a vision corner in there where we wouldn't want the monument sign to be. Another comment is recently the DOT is moving ahead with replacing the bridge over the freeway. There may be more to just replacing that bridge. At one time, there was a roundabout planned here by the DOT that didn't get built. So I'm thinking a vision corner and maybe restricting what you can put in there. So that pond might have to move a little north or change a little bit.
That's fine. Sure.
And yeah, and the monument sign shouldn't be in a vision corner either.
Yeah, and one thing I should point out is I did not do any form of detailed review because I did not want to incur costs on the applicant if this was going to be a no-go. But we would, I believe the applicant is more than willing to be flexible with moving things around on this site.
Yeah, I think it's very doable, but Mike Court could look at the vision corner in there, the triangle.
Yeah, I think this looks really nice. I mean, I drive by there every day, and putting something there other than an open lot there that's always been there.
Yes.
And aside from a real big tree that used to be there too.
I'm sorry.
No. It's an improvement, don't worry.
There were 15 trees dying on that property. I could
Yeah.
literally stick my hand through half of them. So we
Yeah.
cleaned it up to create a less of a risk to the people in the area.
It looks nice.
I mean, we had
No, it looks nice. It's an improvement.
The tree behind the home actually fell on the power lines and started on fire. So like I had to clean that up 2 weeks after I took ownership. So it was great.
No, I think this is gonna look nice there, and yeah, your conceptual design looks really nice.
Yep.
I think it's gonna fit in there, it does look residential.
Right.
And I just like that look, for that area.
The big part too is Michelle really did it with the point of, it's the entrance to Delafield.
Right.
You guys have a
Yeah.
really nice entrance.
Yeah.
And that lot has just been sitting unutilized for so long. And you put something like her office in there, it's kind of like wow,
Right.
you're coming into Delafield.
Right.
Mhm.
And because it looks residential, that's the
does.
feel you get. I could see those 6 houses at a time because I've been to small cities where they do have residential coming into, where they have little shops. The owner like lives upstairs or something, or the whole
That's kind of the
building
idea,
shop.
right?
Yeah.
It's to
Office.
give the
Yeah.
property owners flexibility.
Right.
They can keep doing what they've always done, or if they want to change it sometime in the future, they have that.
Right.
I mean,
But no, I think.
most people, I think, would look at that as value add to the property. Some might not, but
Well, I
in theory,
think
it should.
This would be a very nice view coming into downtown. So, I did read all your information on the rezone. We're going to talk
Okay.
about that now.
Well, we're talking about the applicant and items under C. So we're basically give them the feedback, and then we'll move on to the next item.
All right. Any
A different piece of feedback is regardless of how things may develop for any possible changes to the north. I know we don't like to create islands of particular zoning, but I think having this be zoned for this type of use is appropriate, whether a plan carries forward to connect it all to downtown or not, just based on where it is. I mean, it's an interesting, it's on the off ramp. I mean, I wouldn't want to tie your success moving forward to something else that may end up becoming real protracted if it doesn't go, if we don't see a straight line of sight to something that's agreeable for the properties to the north. I think we should have things segregated so that our process doesn't
I hear you.
stall your effort here.
So this can continue and
Yeah,
see it to
regardless of what
fruition.
happens, and even if it's with or without, the
I
idea of the
agree.
right of way, I think the right of way, regardless of what ends up happening today, the easement, would make sense.
It's a
Would make sense.
challenging property too, because you have the power lines and you have the easements from the ATC. They originally had a zone that you could put a multifamily unit on there. When you really start digging into it, I don't know how you're gonna fit that on there because of the height.
There's height restrictions there because of the power lines. So like we can't go, what was it, 10?
So you have to be 17 feet under the power lines.
Wow.
So, and if you put a basement or something underneath that, there's no way you'd have the height clearance between those power lines and anything else. So like right now, we have it proposed to use that site for just a parking lot, basically. So it keeps it out of the nature and doesn't change it too much and doesn't affect anything that way.
And then, you'll have one thing that I'm surprised Tim hasn't mentioned it yet, but headlights. And we want to make sure that the headlights are screened so they don't go into the neighbors' properties. So we want to make sure when you come back.
The headlights would only be there Monday and Tuesday. Literally, I'm done by 1 o'clock Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, right. Because there could be different things, and neighbors, if there's one thing they really get upset about, it's headlights coming through their bedroom windows, right? Even if it's
Yep.
not on a daily basis, they really don't like that.
Winter months when it's dark, I know I live
Yeah.
where I have to put up with that. I see it all the time.
Well, and from my standpoint, I mean, most people are coming and going, coming from home at that point anyways, when I'm ending our day. Like, I'm probably the last person to leave the building, and the latest I leave is on a Monday night, which is my longest night, is probably no later than 7 o'clock, which is no different than somebody pulling in their driveway.
Right.
So, and it's a single car, it's not multiple cars. I mean, my staff is 7, so, I mean, there's not a huge number of us coming and going.
You're not going to.
You're lucky the neighbors to the south, I don't think they'll care about that. Or to the west.
The deer may, but.
It's the east and the north.
Yeah.
All right, any other things that we'd like to see them bring back?
No, we'll get into more of the details when they come back.
Sure.
So, no,
And
I
if-
think it's fine.
I'll also work with them and make sure they meet all the code requirements and stuff like that too, so.
I think it looks
We like
Yeah,
it.
I like it.
So it sounds like there's a consensus for you to invest a little bit more money and move through the process.
Okay.
Great, well, thank you very much for coming. We're looking
Thanks,
forward to
guys.
working with you.
Welcome to Delafield.
Okay, we will move on to 10D. DELC 0798964, 310 Genesee Street, owner Ryan Eisenhut. DELC 0798962, 302 Genesee Street, owner William and Judy Pollock. DELC 07989460005, 226 Genesee Street, owner Bradley and Marcia Stocks, DELC 0798958, 208 Genesee Street, owner Jacob and Jacqueline Fuchs, DELC 0798957, 200 Genesee Street, owner Michelle Kelly, and DELC 0798892, 600 Poplar Path, owner City of Delafield, applicant City of Delafield, discussion on potential rezoning the subject properties and amending the land use plan to allow for low-intensity commercial use and to amend the land use plan and zoning for the cemetery.
Okay. So, first of all, a notice did go to all of the properties highlighted in red, which are the subject properties, part of the discussion, and they also went to the rest of the residential properties that make up that block. So all of the properties that abut them to the east also received a letter of tonight's meeting. And then the cemetery is part of the request. So perhaps we could get that part out of the way. The focus group did recommend, and someone noticed that.
Ken Beckman.
So Ken Beckman noticed that the cemetery is still in a residential zoning and land use category, and so the recommendation was to amend that into the institutional category for the land use plan and public and semi-public use on the zoning map. Is there anyone opposed to that particular change?
No.
Okay, so moving past that, then we also have 7 properties that were discussed as part of the focus group discussion. Just knowing that this area is the gateway into downtown, and at the time that the focus group was meeting, this property was for sale, and it was for sale for some time, and the people who were coming in were all proposing business uses. And so we had suggested, well, we'll bring it up at the focus group and see what happens. And again, so the recommendation from that group was to allow professional office type uses similar to a home occupation, but not require the residential component to it. Again, thinking that they wouldn't have easy access to the properties and that they would have to rely on Genesee Street without parking. Just want to see what else. One other thing to point out is the downtown development plan from 1993 did recommend that this area be preserved as residential for the next 20 years from the date of that plan. It has been 30 years and quite a bit has changed since then. And so, again, the focus group has indicated through their recommendation that perhaps the area is now suitable for the low-intensity uses. The Delafield Family Dental does, exceed what the original recommendation was. It does require employees parking and traffic, which would not be part of the home occupation type extension. But again, this particular property, regardless of an access path running along the east edge, extending north, is unique in that it has frontage on Poplar Path, and there's a safe route for access to the property, and it does have a double lot. So if it sounds like you're supportive of the change, there's several different options, and so this is where it gets challenging: is how do we move it forward? Ideally, it is good to extend the zoning to the north. It is an extension of downtown, and so it's always good to look at the overall area. They all are residences right now, and this would be on the southernmost end of that. The focus group recommendation was that whatever zoning district we allow or create, we would continue to allow those residential uses to remain, be changed, or whatever. That would be one of the uses that would be allowed is the residential. And then we would just need to either, craft a new district or use and amend one of the existing districts. And so in my report, I lay out a couple of different options with some pros and cons. And I'm just going to be really brief with this. CBD2 and B1 seemed like the most existing comparable business districts. However, when you read the purpose and intent of those districts and you look at the uses that can all be allowed, it gets kind of complicated. It doesn't really meet this particular area. And you could end up with uses like restaurants and bars, which is not, I don't think, would be the most fitting. So, it would be my recommendation that we talk out what you think is and isn't appropriate, and that we craft a district, a transitional business district for this zone, because it really is the area between residential and commercial. And in that way, then you can create your setbacks, your offsets, the area that you want the building to occupy. You could even say that traffic generated from people other than you can have no more than so many employees and no traffic unless you have access from a way other than Genesee Street. So right now that's limited to this property only, or if the easement gets passed and extends north, well, then those people will have a second way to their property as well. So you can be as crafty as you want, but it gives us the ability to have that intent section specific to a transitional zone.
When I first started reading this, that's where my mind jumped right away, was to a new district, because then we can tailor it. With the other two, you're really limited. There isn't as much sway there. Where by creating a new district, I think that's great. I would recommend, because then we can tailor it to that certain area.
So the B1 is close. It just allows other intensive uses that may not be appropriate.
The only thing I didn't like about going with like the business district is the potential of a tavern, restaurant. There's a school right across the street.
Right.
I just think that is really.
That's not good.
That's not good.
No.
Cushing
Tavern
is right across
or
the street. We all might like to visit them, but it's just not appropriate for that particular area. So I think us tailoring our own, district restrictions for that to fit that particular area is going to work out a whole lot better in the short run.
Would there be a way to? Is there any restrictions in our liquor permits or zoning for taverns that keeps them a certain distance away from schools?
I think it's 200 feet.
Just 200 feet? Oh.
I think so.
Well, there's two. That's a decent number of the lots. I mean, the school property goes pretty far.
It probably, how wide do you know how wide your lot is?
Oh, with that school.
I'm not 100% sure on that.
But I'd be interested to know if you can't have the liquor, I mean.
Yeah, I see, and why
wouldn't we worry about the B1 or create something special?
That would be something to look into.
Because the other stuff would kind of take care of itself, wouldn't it? The B1, don't we have parking requirements for B1?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you'd be really hard pressed to figure out how you'd open a restaurant there.
Yeah.
In B1 to have the requisite parking requirements.
This is right across the street. You're not 200 feet just going across the street.
Well, I think, the corner of the property would be within 200 feet of the school. So you probably wouldn't have any properties impacted?
Maybe just a suggestion, if you guys can list off some uses that you think would be appropriate, maybe that would give Amy a place to start, and she can come back to the next meeting with a proposal.
Dental office.
Hold
Are
on
we
a
talking
second.
about all the houses coming this way
Yeah.
towards the bank?
Yeah.
Well, I go to Lake Geneva a lot, and I go to those houses. A lot of them are antique shops,
Gift store.
little gift shops, boutiques, stuff like that. Just small, or gift, like you say, gift shops and that, or bookstores. There's still books. Small, very small businesses.
What about the takeout pizza type places? That would you?
No,
Yeah, I
I
think
haven't
that's
seen
too
any of
much
that.
traffic.
No, I
Yeah.
haven't seen any of that.
I-
The bigger houses.
But what
How
would
about
stop?
like tax services,
Yeah.
Accountants, lawyers.
Right.
insurance agents?
Yeah, anything office related like that, I think would be
A lot of that is
relatively
B6
appropriate.
Yeah.
by us. It's got that laundry list of professional offices and
B1,
But you could restrict it to how many people at the business, because when you think of accounting office, this is going to have, what, more than 5 people usually?
depends. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a smaller one,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
right, that's where I'm going.
those are things, parking is gonna be what's gonna be a limiting factor here. I like the idea of that easement, that cross-access easement, because if it did go through and it was paved, I would wanna see the driveways removed out to
Exactly.
Genesee Street.
Exactly. That
And
would
you
be
get-
a great goal, I think.
Right, yeah.
And that may allow, parking lots behind those, 2 or 3 space parking lots behind those homes.
Well, kind of like the place downtown, the place, the pottery place. They've got a little bit of parking on that corner there.
Yeah, I mean,
across
I
from
just
the
think
Ice cream place?
that's a list of
Yeah.
things that would work in there, and if we could
Florist.
get that easement through.
So we have existing zoning districts that we may be able to work with and/or amend. Or do you want to create a new district?
Are you talking like, I'm just picking one here, B6, you mentioned
B6
B6.
is close,
So
I
we would
think, to
do
what we're talking about.
we would do B6A, right? And allowable uses in B6A.
So the list of, would be different.
Would
than
be
maybe
different.
The B6 across the freeway.
Right.
Yeah.
That-
I hate to create a new zoning. If we can work with one we have.
And we'd focus on
and
the type
amend
of
it.
businesses that were mentioned.
Okay.
We don't need any
Is that
zoning districts.
The important thing is looking at the purpose and intent of the individual district is really where you see where it may or may not fit. But I can certainly,
whether it's B6 or a different one,
Mm-hmm.
just creating an A on it, whichever one you deem is the closest
Yeah.
to the objective the planning commission has discussed.
Yeah, I always think of B6 as being the most flexible, pretty much one of the most flexible districts.
It's kind of like a catch-all for everything.
But I don't know if you really want that.
Yeah, I'd have to read it myself to make sure.
No, I'm
it's
just
applicable.
saying, I just use that as an example.
Yeah.
It could be B1, right? I'm just saying,
Mm.
based on the feedback, if Amy could
Yeah.
come back and do the research, find out which one meets those requirements, and then a list of businesses like we discussed. Any other businesses that you guys think would be appropriate, Mike or Dan or Bob?
Ones I was thinking.
I'm going to hold firm on creating a new district because I feel that you're going to go out through all the work of setting up, okay, what's allowed in a B1B. Why not just create a new district?
Well, basically we are.
Yeah.
Basically we are.
So just create a new district.
B7. I mean, it's semantics, right?
I'll play around with it. Office, service, retail. What else? those types of, what about?
Professional offices.
Yeah.
Professional
That's
offices.
the accountants and the architects.
Things that don't require a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
Doesn't the retail kind of get questionable then?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I was bringing up the
Opens up a lot
Papa
of doors.
Murphy's, right? Like somebody wants to put in us, that would be a lot of traffic
Yeah,
of
that
stop
would
and
be
go,
too
stop and
much.
go, right?
That would be too much.
Yeah, I mean, if the food service is probably where you get the higher traffic, I mean, you could exclude any type, I don't know, if you want to exclude any type of food service.
Well, if it was like a candy shop.
I know, like you
or
could
a-
get the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
or the candy shop.
Just over here, there used to be like a sandwich shop years ago. Didn't last very long.
Or a chocolate shop.
Or they had a little bakery. So just to the south of here.
Again, I think if we think about traffic, right? Limited traffic.
Right.
Professional offices definitely fit, right?
I'm also thinking about foot traffic. The sidewalk there, and if people
Yes.
want to go to a candy store or a donut shop or something.
Why don't I list out like anything I think is reasonable, even if it's questionable, because then you have a list to work from and you can
Sure.
cross. It's easier to cross things out than to perhaps think of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go through all the districts and pluck anything that seems possible.
Sounds good.
And then you can remove them.
I think B1 comes super
Pretty
super
close.
close.
I agree.
And when you're looking at the intent, I mean, isn't so a question would be, is there restrictions in the language of the intent of B1 that would prevent us from allowing somebody to go in there that would create these problems that the intent says we're trying to avoid?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if we just said it's B1, is there language in there that would say you're not putting up Papa Murphy's in there? You know, because it's just it's
that would-
creating it's not compatible with the character of the adjacent residential district. You're creating problems that we're trying to avoid based on the stated intent of the
Well,
district.
what we could do, I mean, I can look at it a little bit closer. We could, if B1, I do think B1 is probably the closest fit. We could keep B1 and have a text amendment within B1 that has some language. If the property is within, sometimes distances are easier, whatever, something may be prohibited. I don't have the ideas right now, but, I mean, you could tweak B1.
That's not going to get us into trouble legally.
No. I mean, what it's doing is it's saying B1 is an appropriate district, but it's not, the uses within it are not appropriate under certain circumstances. And I don't know if it's probably related to the traffic on Genesee Street.
I'm still going to stick with it.
Okay. Well, we'll go through the language and then we can.
But do we have a consensus that this is worth something pursuing?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
definitely.
Yep.
Definitely.
The one question I have is, I know we sent out letters. Do we get feedback from the
Residents.
residents up the street?
There was one letter I
The
saw
two-
that came into City Hall.
I
Okay.
did not hear.
So the two groups are the people who would be having zoning. I think people need to understand pros and cons of what this would mean.
Yes.
I mean, the pro would be your ability to live there is, there's no change. The con would be you might end up with the insurance agent next door to you instead of, whoever's there now, but you could end up with a neighbor you don't like anyway. But, so that group of people, as well as the people that are adjacent all the way along the back and the property, those, if there's vehement objections with a couple of these people, I think the effort would be moot. We should just look at the corner.
Don't
Yeah.
we need a public hearing to?
Yeah,
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, we do need to do that, right?
We need-
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess I was hoping, I mean, we could have heard some of that during the public comment tonight, but I think there are some people here, so we're outside of the public comment period, but they could certainly reach out to me so I have an idea of what the concerns are as the city planner, and then at least I'll be prepared for those at the meeting. But we'll put it on the agenda for discussion again next month, and if anybody has comment, they should make those comments during the public comment period at the meeting. And then eventually there will be a public hearing, which is where the comments are formalized and included as part of the record for the application.
question we had, this letter said nothing about not having an opportunity to speak tonight.
Oh, you could have.
Oh, on the agenda at the beginning where you can comment on any
Citizens
item.
comment, any item on the agenda?
So in the beginning of the meeting, the mayor asked if there were any citizen comments related to matters on the agenda. Or just, I think, citizen comments.
There's 3 different comments.
Yeah.
There's the consent, there's the public hearing, and then
An
there's
8.
the.
Citizens comments for any topic.
Consent agenda items.
That's
Yeah,
what
and then-
I took it as, the consent, not.
Number 8.
Number 8
It's
is
number 8.
any item.
We'll have another meeting
We'll have
next
another
month,
meeting.
February.
Please contact the city planner with your concerns. We'll try to get them addressed up front. But when we have the next meeting, please speak during the citizens comments portion.
Clear, because this is consent and agenda items at a public hearing, and then our item is new business. So it should have said, comments on new business or something.
Number 8 are you looking at?
Yes, it says citizens' comments on items other than the hearing.
Yeah.
I just feel like you guys know there's a lot of people here that may have been here for the first time, and I appreciate the hard work you guys are doing, but.
Yeah, so we're sorry that
Are we
didn't.
gonna have is it gonna be on the agenda?
Oh, yeah.
next time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This will be on the agenda a few times.
And we don't need to do it in writing?
No, you can certainly come here. You're welcome to do it either way. Do it in writing, do it during the citizens' comments. It's your choice. I would encourage you, though, to please reach out to the planner with your concerns as she's trying to come up with some of the ideas. We want your input. We want your input. Alrighty. Okay, so no action required on that, is that correct? Or we do need to schedule a public hearing?
I don't even have it, I don't think I even have that on here. Do I?
I don't think it's on there. They have to be
We're
after
just
the next
not,
meeting.
we're not, I just wanted to get your ideas.
Okay.
We have to craft some
So,
language.
Yep. Okay, so we'll move on. 11, zoning and ordinance revision. Don't think we have anything. Report of city officials, planning commission meeting dates and deadlines, regular meeting February 23rd, 2022. Regular meeting submittal deadline, February 8th, 2022. So folks, the next planning commission meeting is February 23rd. February 23rd. C, refer you to any correspondence, planner, any report?
No report. Other than, we're trying to work through these focus group matters. We've got plenty on our plate right now, I think, so we'll work through these before adding more, if that's okay.
Okay, building inspector. I have nothing. Can you give us an update on?
How about new home permits?
Can you?
And you're not going to get
What?
Can you give us an update on Hawthorne Farms?
Just that I issued one permit.
You issued one permit. Okay.
For a new house.
For a new house. Okay. Any update on the Hendricks building that you can share?
That we did release the building permit to allow them to install a foundation.
Okay. Alrighty. Seeing no further business, item number 13, we're now adjourned. Thank you for coming and watching on TV.